The night in space was endless, dark and silent. Stars shined like frozen sparks in the black sky. For years, humans had listened to that silence. They had built satellites, scanners, and giant dishes to hear the universe. Most of the time, they caught nothing. Just empty noise like whispers of dead stars. But one night, everything changed. The signal came without warning. At first, it was weak. A faint line on the screen, like a small scratch on glass. The crew at the Deep Space Listening Post almost ignored it. They thought it was just another burst from a dying star. But then the line repeated, once, twice, 3 times, perfectly, like a heartbeat. Dr. Elena Voss leaned forward in her chair. She was the chief scientist on duty, and she had spent her life waiting for something like this. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "It's not random. It's a pattern." Others gathered around her screen. The sound was played through the speakers. It was not words, not music. It was a series of tones, high, low, high, pause, over and over again, cold, precise, like someone was knocking on the door of the universe. The commander of the post, Captain Harland, frowned. "Run it again. Make sure it's real." They ran it through 3 different systems. The answer was the same. The signal was real. It was strong, and it was coming from deep space, far beyond any known colony, far beyond any trade route. The room grew quiet. Everyone felt it. This was not just noise. This was someone speaking, Dr. Voss whispered again. "It's a message," the crew argued. Some said it could be natural, just a strange pulse from a collapsing star. Others said it could be a trick, a reflection from a distant planet. But the longer they listened, the more they understood. The signal was repeating in cycles. It was built, designed, intelligent. Hours passed. They tried decoding it. They found shapes inside the noise. Mathematical codes, repeating numbers, strange structures that did not belong to chance. Finally, they heard something more. Hidden under the tones, buried deep in the layers, were voices, broken, faint, but clear enough to chill the blood. The voices were crying, "Help, I'm dying. Oh, please." The scientists stared at each other. Their faces turned pale. This was not just a message. It was a distress call. Captain Harland stood tall, his jaw tight. "Where is it coming from?" The computers gave an answer. A star system far across the void. A place marked dead on every chart. No one traveled there. The star was old, fading, its planets frozen and empty. A system abandoned by time, and yet the signal was alive. The commander turned to his crew. "We must report this to Central Command." But even before the message was sent, the crew felt something strange. The air in the room felt heavier, as if the signal itself was pressing on them. The lights flickered once, twice. For a moment, it felt like the stars outside had grown darker. "Maybe we shouldn't answer," whispered one of the younger officers. "What if it's a trap?" Dr. Voss's hands shook. She looked at the screen again. The voices repeated, soft and desperate. She had spent her life studying the universe. She had dreamed of first contact. And now it was here. But the sound of those voices was not exciting. It was terrifying. Still, she said the words no one wanted to speak. "We cannot ignore them." The crew fell silent. Every person in that room knew what it meant. If they answered, humanity would no longer be alone. If they ignored it, the mystery would remain buried in the dark. Captain Harland closed his eyes for a long moment. Then he gave the order. "Prepare a reply." The technicians worked quickly, their fingers shaking as they typed. They built a simple answer. A pulse of light, a rhythm, a heartbeat to match the signal. A way to say, "We hear you," the code was sent. The signal left Earth, racing through the dark faster than thought toward that dying system. The room was silent. Everyone waited. For one long minute, nothing happened. The stars outside the windows burned the same. The machines hummed. The air was still. Then the lights flickered again. Harder this time. The hum of the machines turned sharp. Alarms screamed. On the screens, the stars shimmered. Some blinked out. Others twisted as if the sky itself had turned into water. The crew jumped to their feet, fear in their eyes. "What's happening?" Someone shouted. Captain Harland stared at the windows, his face white. For the first time in his life, he looked afraid. The signal answered not in sound, not in words, but in something far greater. The universe itself seemed to lean closer, as if it had finally noticed humanity. Dr. Voss whispered, her voice breaking. "We should never have answered." The silence after the signal was worse than the signal itself. For hours, the crew sat in the listening post, waiting, watching the monitors, afraid to blink. The signal they had answered was gone, replaced by static. But the air still felt heavy, as if something vast had turned its gaze toward them. Captain Harland gave the order no one wanted to hear. "We're sending a ship." The crew of the exploration vessel Artemis received the mission. They were trained, disciplined, and used to danger. But as the briefing ended, each of them felt the same unease. They were not flying toward discovery. They were flying toward something darker, something that had cried for help from across the stars. The journey took weeks. Artemis crossed empty regions of space where no ships traveled. Each day, the strange signal returned for only a few seconds. Sometimes it was just tones. Sometimes it was broken words. Sometimes it was screams. The crew could barely sleep. It felt like the voices were inside their dreams, calling from the void. Dr. Elena Voss, now aboard the Artemis, studied every second of the signal. She wrote notes in shaky handwriting. Mathematics in the first layer, coordinates in the second, fear in the third. She no longer believed this was only a distress call. It was something more. A warning, or a lure. As they neared the coordinates, the star system appeared. The central star was red, swollen, near death. Its light was weak, as though it no longer cared to shine. Planets drifted around it like frozen corpses. Nothing moved. No radio chatter. No signs of trade, war, or life. "This place is dead," said Lieutenant Karim, the pilot, his voice tight. But the computers disagreed. Energy spikes lit up across the scanners. Something was alive down there. Something was waiting. The Artemis descended toward the third planet, once marked on old maps as habitable. Now it looked broken. Vast cracks split the surface. Oceans were dry scars. Entire cities were collapsed under layers of dust and ice. Yet, as they approached, the signal returned, louder than ever. The crew felt it before they heard it. A low vibration ran through the ship's metal bones. Lights dimmed. The signal bled into every system, forcing itself onto screens, whispering through speakers. "Help us. Why, we are still here." "Don't leave." Dr. Voss gripped her headset. "It's coming from underground." They landed near the ruins of a great city. Towers that once touched the clouds now lay shattered, leaning like broken teeth. Wind howled through empty streets. Statues of tall, unfamiliar beings stood half-buried in dust, their stone eyes wide, their faces twisted in fear. The crew stepped into the ruins. Their boots echoed on hollow ground. No birds, no insects, no life at all. Only silence and the whisper of the signal guiding them. Down a cracked stairway, they found a door carved into the rock. Symbols covered the walls, sharp and alien, yet strangely human in their desperation. The door groaned as it opened, releasing a gust of stale air. Beyond it, a tunnel stretched downward into blackness. Lieutenant Karim hesitated. "Captain, this feels wrong. If something survived down here, why is it still hiding?" Harlan's jaw tightened. "Because whatever killed this world is still out there. Move." They followed the tunnel deep below the surface. The air grew colder. Lights flickered. The signal grew stronger until it was no longer through machines, it was in their bones, vibrating their very blood. Finally, they reached a cavern. In the center stood machines older than anything they had ever seen. Towers of metal, half broken but still alive, humming with strange energy. And around those machines were shadows. Not natural shadows, but shapes that shifted when no light touched them. The crew froze. Then one of the shadows moved. It pulled itself together, forming a figure, tall, thin, its skin pale as ash, its eyes glowing faint blue. It spoke without moving its lips. The voice echoed inside their minds. "You came." Dr. Voss staggered back, her chest tight. "You sent the signal?" The figure nodded slowly. Behind it, more shapes moved, others like it, frail and trembling. "Survivors. We are the last," the figure said. Its voice cracked as if even thoughts were painful. "Our world. Devoured. Our people. Gone. We called. And you answered." The crew felt a rush of pity and fear. These were not conquerors. They were victims. But as the survivors spoke, their words darkened. "You must leave," the figure whispered. "For if you hurt us..." Then they did too. The cavern shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Far above, in the empty skies, alarms rang on the Artemis. Enemy ships, massive and twisted, had appeared at the edge of the system. Dr. Voss's breath caught in her throat. "Who are they?" The alien's eyes glowed brighter with terror. The ones who eat the stars. The crew froze. Outside, the black shapes descended, bending the starlight, turning the dead sky even darker. Humanity's first contact was not a greeting. It was a warning, and the danger had already arrived. The ruins above were lifeless, but beneath the planet's crust, the silence was heavier than stone. The crew of the Artemis followed the survivors deeper, each step echoing like a drumbeat of dread. Their flashlights cut through dust and darkness, lighting walls covered with strange carvings, pictures of suns, stars, and creatures devouring them whole. Dr. Voss ran her hand over the carvings. "This isn't just history," she whispered. "It's a warning." The survivors, thin, pale beings with glowing eyes, moved slowly as if gravity itself fought against them. They led the humans through winding tunnels, past ancient machines still alive with flickering energy. The machines hummed in rhythm with the same signal that had called across the universe. Captain Harland kept his voice steady, though his hands gripped his weapon tightly. "You've been here all this time. How have you survived?" One of the survivors turned its glowing eyes toward him. Its voice spoke directly into their minds. "By hiding. By waiting. By praying someone would come." The cavern walls shook with a distant rumble. Far above, something heavy moved in the sky. The crew exchanged nervous glances. They all knew. The enemy ships had landed. Time was running out, still they pressed on. At the end of the tunnel, they entered a vast underground chamber. The scale of it stunned them. The ceiling stretched so high their lights could not find it. In the center of the chamber stood a massive structure, half temple, half machine. Its pillars were covered with alien writing. Its heart glowed with a faint blue fire. Dr. Voss's breath caught. This is their last stronghold. The survivor who had spoken earlier raised a trembling hand toward the structure. "This place is the memory of our world. It holds all we were. If it falls, we are erased forever," Lieutenant Karim whispered. "It already feels erased," and he was right. Though the chamber held light and life, everything around them carried the weight of a world already dead. The air was stale. The survivors' movements were slow, almost ghost-like. Even their voices sounded like echoes, as if they no longer fully belonged to the living. Then the signal returned, louder, harsher. Not just in the machines, but in the humans' skulls. A pulse of fear so strong it made their teeth ache. The survivors froze, their glowing eyes wide with terror. "They are here," one whispered. Before anyone could speak, the ground cracked. A piece of the ceiling broke and fell, smashing against the stone floor. Dust filled the air. The crew raised their weapons. Dr. Voss tried to calm her shaking hands. From the darkness beyond the chamber, something stirred. At first, it looked like a shadow, but it moved against the light, slithering across walls and pillars, stretching in impossible directions. It had no shape, yet every shape. A thing that twisted the eye and made the brain scream. The survivors fell to their knees, whispering prayers. The feeders have found us." The shadow stretched closer, and for a moment Dr. Voss thought she heard voices inside it. Not alien voices, human ones. Voices of her family, her crew, calling her name. She staggered back, pressing her hands against her ears, but the voices did not stop. Captain Harland fired his weapon. The blast of energy cut through the air, but when it struck the shadow, the light simply vanished, swallowed whole. The shadow did not bleed. It did not break. It simply kept coming. The survivor raised its hand again, this time toward the humans. "You cannot fight them. Not with your weapons. Only with light." The crew didn't understand. "Light? What do you mean?" The survivor's glowing eyes dimmed with sorrow. "They come from where there is no light. They eat suns. They drink stars. Shadows are their home. If you carry light into their dark, they suffer." The shadow shrieked, not with sound, but with a vibration that rattled bones. Pieces of the chamber fell as the survivors and humans fled toward the temple machine at the center. Dr. Voss shouted over the chaos, "How do we use this place?" "What do we do?" The survivor touched the glowing heart of the machine. "This world built a beacon, strong enough to burn shadows, but it cost us everything."
"We could not power it again, perhaps?"
"You can." The humans exchanged terrified glances. Their ship had weapons, energy, and light. Could they connect it? Could they awaken the beacon? Above, the rumbles grew louder. More shadows slithered through the tunnels, filling the cavern with a storm of living darkness. Captain Harland made his choice. Dr. Voss, link our ship's core to this thing. Kareem, cover her. We hold the line. The crew moved. Lights flashed. Weapons fired, the shadows screamed. But for every blast, 10 more shadows came. The cavern became a battlefield of echoes and nightmares. As Dr. Voss worked, her hands shaking, the survivor leaned close to her ear. If you succeed, they will know your kind. If you fail, no one will remember you ever existed. Her blood ran cold. The words were not a warning. They were a prophecy. And in that moment, deep inside the silent world, humanity's first true choice in the greater universe was made. Not whether to fight, but whether they could survive long enough to matter. The cavern shook as though the planet itself wanted to bury its secrets. Dust fell in heavy clouds. Shadows slithered through the cracks in the stone, hungry and endless. The humans fired their weapons, beams of light cutting through the dark, but the shadows swallowed the blasts like water-drinking fire. Dr. Voss worked furiously at the beacon's controls, her hands trembling. Cables from the Artemis's power core were connected to the ancient alien machine. Sparks jumped. Lights flickered. But the beacon remained silent, like a heart that refused to beat. We're running out of time, Kareem shouted, his weapon glowing red from overheating. The survivor leader stood near the humans, his glowing eyes fixed on the beacon. His voice echoed in their minds. It cannot awaken with strength alone. It needs will. It needs life. Dr. Voss stared at him, confused. Life? What do you mean? The survivor's thin body shook as he stepped forward. We sacrificed millions to light it once. We gave our world. That is why we still breathe, Captain Harlan's jaw clenched. That's suicide. We need another way. But before more could be said, the shadow struck. One coiled like a serpent and lashed at Kareem, tearing his armor and throwing him across the chamber. His scream echoed in the dark. 2 more shadows lunged toward Dr. Voss, but Harlan tackled her aside, his weapon firing point blank into the black mass. The light flared, and for a moment the shadow shrieked and broke apart. The survivor leader raised both arms. A faint glow spread from his body, pushing back the shadows a few steps, his face twisted with pain. Run if you wish. But know this, the feeders never stop. If you leave, they will follow you. They will find your stars next. The words hit the humans like a blade. This was no local nightmare. It was a universal threat. Dr. Voss steadied herself. She touched the beacon's controls again. If the machine needs life, then maybe human energy can fuel it. Maybe we don't have to die to give it power. Maybe we can merge our ship's light with its heart. The survivor's dim eyes studied her. For a moment, sorrow turned to curiosity. Perhaps. But the cost will still be great. Captain Harlan didn't hesitate. Do it. The team worked fast, dragging Kareem back to cover while connecting the Artemis's reactor to the beacon's central core. The machines groaned as if waking from a long nightmare. The faint blue fire inside the beacon pulsed once, twice, then held steady. The shadows screamed louder. Their forms twisted, pulling back from the glow. But the cavern trembled harder now, the ceiling cracking, rocks crashing down. The world itself seemed unwilling to hold such power again. The survivor leader fell to his knees. His body glowed brighter, burning like embers. It lives again. You have done what we could not. But beware, the feeders are not defeated. They are only wounded. They will return. Dr. Voss leaned closer, desperate. Then help us, join us. Teach us how to fight them. The survivor looked at her, his face tired, his voice fading. We are finished. We have given all we had, but you humans are different. You face them without fear. You carry light even in your small hearts. That is why the signal found you. His body broke apart into sparks, drifting into the air like dust lit by fire. The other survivors cried out softly, their voices like fading wind. Some fell into stillness. Others vanished into the shadows, consumed before the beacon's light reached them. Only a handful remained, pale and trembling, clinging to hope like dying candles. Captain Harlan watched in silence, his fists tight. These people are almost gone. If we don't stop those things, they'll be erased completely. The beacon pulsed brighter. For a moment, it filled the cavern with pure light. The shadows screamed and withdrew into cracks, slithering away like snakes driven into the sea. Silence followed. Heavy, endless silence. The humans lowered their weapons, their ears still ringing. The survivors stared at the beacon as if it were both salvation and curse. One of them, a young alien with faint blue eyes, whispered, "You have done more than we dreamed. But now the feeders will hunt you. You have shown them. Resistance, Dr. Voss's heart sank. The galaxy was not safe. Humanity had not just answered a call for help. They had announced themselves to monsters older than stars. Kareem coughed, blood on his lips. So what now? We sit here and wait for them to finish us? Captain Harlan shook his head. No, we take the survivors aboard. We carry their story, and we prepare Earth for what's coming. The chamber quaked one last time. Rocks fell, sealing part of the tunnels. The beacon throbbed with its own heartbeat, ready to shine again if fed with enough light. The survivors huddled near the humans, fragile and silent. Their eyes glowed weakly in the half-dark. Dr. Voss looked at them and felt a weight heavier than fear. Responsibility. She whispered to herself. They thought they were sending a call for help. But maybe. It was a warning. No one answered. The cavern was silent once more. But far above, the universe was no longer silent at all. The Artemis rose through the broken sky of the ruined planet, carrying with it the last survivors. The beacon deep below still pulsed faintly, a wounded heart inside a dead world, but the crew knew it would not be enough. The enemy had already arrived. The sensors screamed first. Strange objects appeared at the edge of the system, black shapes against the stars. They were not like ships. They had no clear design, no wings, no engines. They bent light around them, so that even the stars seemed to vanish where they drifted. Lieutenant Kareem stared at the screen, his face pale. They're not flying. They're floating, like shadows in water. Captain Harlan's voice was hard. Shadows are not, they're coming. The crew watched in silence as the objects moved closer. Each one was the size of a city, yet silent as dust. When light from the dying star touched them, it didn't reflect, it disappeared, as though the black surface drank it whole. Dr. Voss whispered, They're feeding. Even now. Look at the star, it's dimmer than before, and she was right. The ancient red sun, already weak, flickered as if something were sucking its life. The dark ship circled slowly, patient hunters around a dying flame. The survivors aboard the Artemis collapsed in fear, their glowing eyes dimmed. One of them, the young alien who had spoken before, pressed against the walls and whispered into the minds of the crew. They have come. The Star Eaters. The name stuck like poison in the air. The shadows drew nearer. Finally, one broke away and approached the human ship directly. As it neared, the screens filled with static. The Artemis shook as though the void itself was pressing down. Every light flickered. Alarms screamed. Then a sound filled the ship. Not through the speakers, not through the radios. It was inside their heads, a voice low, endless. You are not them. The crew froze. No one spoke. The voice continued, heavy and slow. You carry light. A small light, and yet, you answered. Dr. Voss clutched her headset, though it was useless now. What do you want from us? She whispered. The voice rumbled like collapsing mountains. We want what we always want, stars, suns, life. Captain Harlan stepped forward, his jaw tight. Then you won't find it here. Not from us. For a moment there was silence. Then the black ship shifted. Its shape bent, twisted like smoke caught in wind. And then it revealed something worse than its form. A face, not a real face but a distortion on the hull, an image pulled from their own minds. Each crew member saw something different. To Dr. Voss it was her dead father's face, pale and cold. To Kareem it was a childhood friend lost to war. To Harlan it was his wife whispering his name. The entity used memory as a weapon. Dr. Voss's hand shook. They're inside us. They're showing us what we fear. The voice returned, colder than before. We have eaten countless worlds. But never have we heard defiance. Never have we felt pain. The crew realized what it meant, the beacon. The light they had ignited below had hurt them. For the first time, the feeders had been wounded. The black ship drifted closer, its false faces flickering in and out. Then it spoke again. You carry the spark. We will take it. And then you will burn. Without warning, the ship struck. A beam of pure darkness shot toward the Artemis. It was not fire, not energy, it was absence. Everything it touched vanished into nothingness. Metal groaned. Shields screamed, "Return fire!" Harlan shouted. Weapons flared from the Artemis, bursts of plasma and missiles. The blasts hit the shadow ship and vanished. But for a second, just a second, the black surface rippled like water struck by stone. They're not invincible, Kareem gasped. We can hurt them. We just have to hit harder. The survivor huddled near them, his weak voice entering their minds. No weapon will end them. Only light. pure light, like the beacon. You must carry it. Dr. Voss's eyes widened. She turned to Harland. The beacon. If we channel its energy through our weapons, we can fight back. Harland nodded. Then let's give them a taste. The crew worked furiously, rerouting power from the Artemis's reactor to mimic the beacon's pulse. Lights flickered across the ship. Systems overloaded, but the weapons hummed with a strange glow, brighter, sharper, unnatural. Fire! Harland commanded. The weapons blazed. This time, when they struck the shadow ship, the black surface screamed. Not with sound, but with vibrations that rattled the universe itself. The false faces melted. The ship shuddered and pulled back. The crew stared in awe. For the first time, the Star Eaters were not devouring. They were retreating, but the victory was small. At the edge of the system, dozens more ships stirred, drifting closer. A fleet of shadows, hungry and endless. Kareem swallowed hard. We've made them angry. Dr. Voss shook her head. No, we've made them notice us. Captain Harland's eyes hardened. Good, then let them notice. Because we're not done yet. The screen filled with black shapes. The first battle between humanity and the Star Eaters had begun. The first retreat of the shadow ship gave the crew only seconds of hope. Beyond the dying star, more of the black vessels gathered, circling like vultures waiting for the last heartbeat. Each one stretched across the horizon, their surfaces swallowing starlight. Captain Harland stood at the command deck of the Artemis, his voice steady but sharp. We hit them once. That means they can bleed. If they can bleed, they can fall. Lieutenant Kareem shook his head. Sir, there are too many. Even if we hurt one, 100 more are waiting. Dr. Voss's eyes were on the flickering monitors. Her hands trembled, but her voice carried certainty. We don't win by strength. We win by thinking differently. That's what humans do. The survivors huddled in the corner, their glowing eyes dimmed with fear. One whispered into the crew's minds, You cannot defeat them. They will consume all. That is what they are. Harland turned, his jaw tight. Maybe. But no one's ever fought them like we will. The plan the Artemis could not fight a fleet, but it could outthink one. Dr. Voss remembered the beacon's secret, the pulse of light that twisted the shadows. If the ship could mimic that light not just as a weapon but as a trick, then maybe they could survive. We create decoys, she explained. Fake signals, fake ships, fake light. We make them chase ghosts while we strike where it hurts. Harland nodded. Then make it happen. The crew worked quickly. The Artemis's system screamed under the strain. Energy was diverted, signals split, weapons rewired. Soon holograms of light appeared across the void, copies of the Artemis glowing like stars. The Star Eaters moved instantly, chasing the false ships with hunger. Their beams of darkness struck, tearing illusions apart, only for 3 more to appear elsewhere. The void filled with echoes. For the first time, the predators hesitated. The strike now, Harland ordered. The Artemis slipped between the shadows, invisible among its own decoys. Its weapons flared, this time burning with the pulse of the beacon. Blasts of light pierced the nearest shadow ship. It twisted, rippled, and screamed, folding in on itself until it collapsed into nothingness. The crew gasped. They had destroyed one, but the victory came with a price. The other ships turned as one. The illusions no longer fooled them. The fleet moved toward the real Artemis faster than thought, bending space itself as they closed in. Kareem's hands flew over the controls. They've locked on. The ship shuddered as beams of darkness grazed its hull. Armor peeled away. Lights flickered. The survivors cried out, their voices like broken glass in the crew's minds. Dr. Voss's eyes widened. We can't outrun them. We need something bigger. A weapon they've never seen. Harland's face was grim. We've got one. The forbidden weapon hidden in the Artemis's hold was a device built long ago but never tested. It was called the Solar Lance, a weapon designed to ignite small stars. It was too dangerous, too unstable. Earth's council had ordered it sealed away. But now it was their only chance. Harland gave the order. Prepare the lance. The crew hesitated. Using it could destroy them as well. But there was no time to argue. They armed the weapon, feeding the ship's reactor into its core. Lights dimmed across the Artemis. Systems shut down one by one. Everything they had was going into this one strike. The Shadow Fleet drew closer. Their voices filled the crew's minds, heavy and cold. We are endless. We are hunger. We are the end of your light, Dr. Voss whispered. Then choke on it. The lance fired. The light, a beam of pure brilliance, erupted from the Artemis, brighter than the dying star itself. It cut through the void like a sword of suns. For a heartbeat, the darkness screamed. Ships of shadow rippled, shattered, and vanished. The dying star flared, its light feeding the beam, turning the system into a storm of fire. The crew shielded their eyes. The survivors wept. The shadows scattered, broken for the first time. Some fled into the void. Others simply dissolved. When the light faded, silence returned. The fleet was gone. Only fragments of black dust drifted through space. The Artemis floated, half dead. Systems offline. Hull scorched, but alive. Kareem let out a shaky laugh. We did it. We made them run, but Dr. Voss shook her head. Her eyes were wide with dread. No, we showed them something worse. We showed them we can fight back. The aftermath. The survivors looked at the humans with awe and fear. One whispered, "You carry light greater than we imagined. But now they will return, not to feed, to destroy you." Captain Harlan stared at the black dust on the screen. His voice was cold steel. "Then let them come. They wanted us hidden in the dark. Now they know we burn." The universe had taken its first true look at humanity. Not prey, not shadows, but fire, and fire spreads. The Artemis drifted in silence. Its hull was scorched, its engines weak, its crew exhausted. Yet they had survived. Against all odds, humanity had stood against the Star Eaters and lived. For a brief moment, the stars seemed calm again. The ruined system was quiet. Black dust floated where enemy ships had once hunted. The survivors huddled in silence, their glowing eyes fixed on the humans with both gratitude and dread. Lieutenant Kareem leaned back in his chair, his chest rising and falling with shaky breaths. "We should be dead, all of us. But we're not." Dr. Voss stared at the flickering screens, her voice low. "We showed them something they've never seen before." Captain Harlan's gaze was locked on the void outside. His words were sharp and heavy. "And that's the problem. Now they know we exist." The message, the crew thought the danger had passed, but then the silence broke. The black dust outside stirred, curling like smoke. From it came a faint pulse, slow, deliberate, like a heartbeat. The Artemis's systems flickered alive without command. Symbols appeared on every screen. Not human, not alien. Something else. Something carved into the language of the universe itself. The survivors collapsed, clutching their heads. Their voices filled the humans' minds. They speak. They answer. And then the crew heard it. A voice vast and endless filled the ship. It was not the whisper of one ship, but the chorus of countless. "We have searched for ages. We have devoured suns. We have broken worlds. And now we have found you." The crew froze. Every hair on their bodies stood on end. The voice continued, slow and heavy. "You are not prey. You are not shadow. You are something else. You carry the spark that burns." Dr. Voss's hand shook. She whispered, "They're not talking to us. They're talking about us." The voice thundered again. "We will come. Not for your stars, not for your lives, but for your fire." Then the message ended. The screens went black. The dust drifted silent once more. The revelation. The survivors trembled, their glowing eyes wide with terror. One whispered weakly, "Do you understand what you've done?" For the first time in their endless hunger, they have noticed something they fear. Not food, not light, but resistance. Dr. Voss's chest tightened. The meaning struck her like ice. The Star Eaters had not only been hunting worlds, they had been searching for something strong enough to stand against them. And now they had found it, humanity. Kareem rubbed his temples. "We should have never answered that signal. If we'd stayed quiet, they never would have known we were here." But Harlan shook his head. His eyes burned with something stronger than fear. "No, if we hadn't answered, we'd still be hiding in the dark. Now we know what's out there, and they know what we are. There's no going back." Preparing the flame, the survivors looked at the humans with awe. The young one who had spoken before whispered, "We believed all hope was gone, but now we see it. You are different. You carry a flame even shadows cannot swallow." Dr. Voss crouched beside the alien, her voice gentle but firm. "Then help us. If we're going to survive, we need to understand them. We need to know how to fight." The alien nodded weakly. "We will give you what remains of our knowledge. But remember, the more you resist, the more you will draw them, and they will come with all their strength." Harlan's voice was steel. "Good. Let them bring everything they've got. Earth won't go quietly." The survivors fell silent, their faint eyes reflecting both sorrow and hope. The final hook. The Artemis turned away from the dead system, limping through the void toward home. Behind them, the beacon pulsed one last time, sending a ripple across the galaxy. It was no longer a call for help. It was a warning. On distant worlds, other civilizations looked up and felt it. A tremor in the dark. A fire spreading where no fire should exist. For the first time in countless ages, the Star Eaters had met something they did not consume. They had met humanity, and the universe shivered. Captain Harlan stood at the ship's window watching the stars stretch before them. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper, but filled with unshakable resolve. They wanted us silent. They wanted us small. But we answered, and now they will regret it.